Hi, folks. It's me again, Dustin Micheli, here with you, the second part of the second edition of Press Monkey Independent Media's Primate Report. Now, brought my mandolin with me to play that song for you because it's a song called Moscow Nights. Why would I play Moscow Nights? Why would I play Moscow Nights? Why? Because of Russia, Russia, Russia. Now, I did not want to make one of my reports about the Russia thing. I would have hoped that it would have all gone away by this point. Because to this day, more than 7 months after they've launched this narrative, there is no, I repeat, no evidence in any way, shape, or form that can lead one to conclude or can substantiate the entire narrative about Russia either hacking the elections, or about Russia having any kind of influence over the elections. They haven't found anything conclusive about Donald Trump and Russia and any of those connections. The connections that seem to have happened within the establishment party of the Republicans and Russia seem to be incidental at best, and very conflated by the mainstream media. They make the Michael Flynn thing out to be the smoking gun. It ended up being very, very little to nothing. One of the things I would remind people during this whole thing is that you do know that not only does Hillary Clinton and John Podesta and his brother's organization, the Podesta Group, have significant ties to Russia, Vladimir Putin, and the Russian government in general. But that aside, and I don't want to beat that too much because I don't think that it's really that important. What I'd like to point out is that since the collapse of the Soviet Union, a lot of elitists and wealthy people have gotten involved with businesses in Russia. Why would you do that? Because it's a massive population and a massive market with massive amounts of resources and potential. Of course we've done business with Russia. Of course they're doing business with Russia. People like Michael Flynn, who are part of the military-industrial complex, like many of the other ones, like, John Brennan and James Clapper and what have you, they've all had some kind of ties to Russia, and what they have ties to more than that are usually the military-industrial complex and some kind of gain through shareholders and stocks in things like Lockheed Martin and Boeing and DuPont. The Russia thing, as the CNN reporter who got busted, or the CNN producer who got busted on camera by James O'Keefe pointed out, is a big conflated nothing burger. It's baloney. I've been saying this for a long time. If I wasn't still arguing with people online and in person over this issue, then I wouldn't be talking about it right now. But to this day, the mainstream media has done such a good job in brainwashing people and shepherding people on this issue without any evidence whatsoever, and people aren't even asking for it. They're just like, okay, look, I'd like to clarify something. I just like Trump. I just like him as much as any other person almost in the world. I think that he and Hillary Clinton are equal in their evil and potential in this world. I just like him too. It's just not a good enough reason to conflate all of these things about Russia. You know, it's not reasonable, it's not sensible. The only people that it serves is the military-industrial complex, you know, and our weird NATO alliance that seems to be pretty much predicated on arms sales. So, they've been running with this for over 7 months now, you know. Russia this, Russia that. I've been called a Russian troll on more than one occasion now. You know, I'm joining the ranks of some notable people like Glenn Greenwald and Julian Assange and Jimmy Dore and half the other people who question this mainstream media narrative of Russia conflation and collusion without any evidence whatsoever. None whatsoever. What the evidence does consequently point to, oddly enough, is that we do have sound evidence through WikiLeaks that the Democratic Party, Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, and mainstream media colluded to stop Bernie Sanders and the progressive movement he was leading before they bought his lunch. Now, I know you all hate Trump. I understand. I dislike the guy too, but it's just, I know you want a convenient way to get rid of the guy, or a convenient reason and a justifiable reason to get rid of the guy. But the truth is that this is not his fault. I don't even think he really wanted this job. This is not his fault. You know, this is the fault of the neoliberal class who have failed us. You know, they failed to give us a message. They failed to give any direction. You know, the way things are is not an accident. And they're this way because of the two corporate-owned political parties, establishment parties, working in tandem together to make things the way they are. You know, there hasn't really been that much of a push. Most of the pushback back and forth have been things that are really conflated, or things that are so difficult to deal with, like abortion and what have you. It's all nonsense. So there is no two-party system in this country anymore. There hasn't been for a long time. The Democratic Party and the Republican Party both work for the same corporations. They take donations from the same blowhards. You know, it's just a simple truth. You know, if you don't believe me, look into the donations that all of them got during this last election. This last election was incredibly laden with money. You know, Hillary Clinton outspent Donald Trump 2-1. 2-1. Outspent him. Well, one of the biggest amounts of money wasted on a campaign ever in history. She outspent Donald Trump 2-1 and lost. You know? Now, I think that she lost to the obvious, which is our election system. You know, we all lost to that a couple times now. Our electoral college system of electing presidents is absurd and backwards, and no other country really has anything like that because it's counterproductive to democracy and seeing the will of the people done. You know, it's totally meant for elitist purposes. But that aside, you know, the Russia thing has been a big conflated nothing burger by the mainstream media. MSNBC has been the guiltiest of it. They've been just atrocious at continuously covering something without any evidence, hyperinflating things, and sensationalizing things, just plain making things out to be way more than they really are, when some things are very, very innocuous things that many of the wealthy are doing. You know, oh, he has some kind of tie to an oil company in Russia. Well, you know, half of the Democratic Party do too, because guess what? You know, they all are about one thing. They're not about you. They're not about doing the will of the people. They're about money, people. You know, if things were being done about you, then this would be in a completely different country. You know, the Cambridge study that showed that this country has become an oligarchy rather than a democracy of any sort. should be profound in people's minds all the time. What this outlines is it shows that we have no say. Your average, everyday people have no say whatsoever. The top 10%, however, get virtually everything they want. Most people are for universal health care. Most people are for winning, or not winning, but ending our foreign policies and wars abroad. Most people would like to see us not have more than 900 military bases in over 150 countries. Most of us would like to see an infrastructure. And they spend the majority of our money on the military and keep us constantly in conflict with what this whole Russia thing really serves is another Cold War. Cold Wars are very, very lucrative business, folks. Do you know that? Cold War, they showed it during the Reagan administration, during the initial Cold War with USSR. This will come, their stocks are already going up because every time they come out against Russia or Syria or any other country, their stocks in the military industrial complex skyrocket again. This is all being done for one solitary purpose, and that's money. Even a Cold War, it doesn't even have to be a hot conflict for them to make just a ton of money. And that's exactly what this is all about. And it's about the loose conflagration of countries like Russia and Syria and a couple others, Qatar, who are standing up against the NATO alliance and some of their surrogates. The NATO alliance and some of their surrogates are bent on basically invading these countries and controlling their resources and taking over the resources, and that's why this stuff is all really happening. The Russia thing is just serves that purpose too. It serves multiple purposes as well. And distracts everybody from the DNC lawsuit that's currently in play, that is based off of the initial argument of the DNC rigging the primary. Now, they're not even contending that they didn't do this anymore. And it's funny because nobody really cares. They should care. But the truth is they're too focused on trying to find yet another angle to unseat or delegitimize Donald Trump. You're never going to do it, you guys. What you got to do is you're going to have to grin and bear it and just try to make the politicians that you have more accountable and hold them to a higher standard than you are. That's the truth. This has got to stop. The whole Russian conflation. It serves so many purposes. The deflection of attention from the DNC and rigging the primaries is not the smallest of those things that this serves too. It's a huge purpose for them to be serving. Again, a Cold War. It doesn't even have to be a hot war. It's very lucrative business. Political deflection from a very important issue that calls into question a major establishment party and its credibility. Again, yes, these things are happening, but they're trying to get you to concentrate on Vladimir Putin, who has said categorically that he has had nothing to do with it. WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange, who is the initial publisher of the initial emails that we're talking about, denies that there is any link to a foreign state categorically. Yeah, I believe him. He's a transparency activist. I'm going to believe him before I believe covert, undercover, and clandestine agencies who work for the military-industrial complex, that's for sure. The purposes that this all serves are multiple, and distracting everybody from some of the main points. The DNC rigging the primaries was one of the things that this helps kind of deflect attention to, but I'd like to return to what the initial argument is that people are making about this, okay? You're saying And follow me along here for just a second. You're telling me that Russia and Vladimir Putin know how to play our own electoral system like a fiddle better than all of our seasoned politicians and everybody else combined by not creating any propaganda of any sort, but just by his suspicion of the Democratic Party being corrupt. So you're saying that he had somebody hack into the Democratic Party's emails to show and release them, which what that shows, what the released emails show, is the corruption of the Democratic Party. Therefore, you're saying that basically Putin depended on the American people to go, oh well, they're screwing over they're screwing everybody over. We're just not going to vote for. That's a really big gamble that you're talking about that he made. You're saying that he released this information and just went, okay, the American people will for sure not vote for the socialist political outsider. Once they find out, they'll be mad. They won't vote for Hillary Clinton once they find out that they denied the socialist outsider the nomination for the Democratic Party. That's a lot to follow through. I don't know a single person who didn't vote for Hillary Clinton because of the emails or even the investigation that she was under for her own emails and the email debacle, which I will eventually cover in another segment. But she wasn't even held accountable for that stuff. I don't understand why it is that people are obsessing continuously about the Russia thing without being skeptical and asking for proof after 7 months. That's the biggest thing to me that needs to be addressed. So I'm going to try to end this press report, have a little coffee, and go back to my sweet family. Here's my new cup. I don't know if you can see that because of the glare, but I'm going to go have a little coffee and have a little fun with my boys. This is our press report, and I did want to talk about the Russia thing, and I feel like I've kind of covered it in a courtesy sort of way. I think it's complete fabrication. It's baloney. There's no proof, no evidence whatsoever. Look it up, and peace of bananas, folks. Hope everything goes well out there, and I'll look forward to seeing you again in my next press report, my next primate report. Still working on this, succumbing to the pressure of the camera. But at any rate, one last thing I'd like to say about the Russia thing. Again, I mentioned that I've been called a tool of Russia, a paid troll of Russia. I only wish I was being paid, even in rubles. Seriously, I wish I was being paid for this. But the truth of the matter is I'm not. I'm doing this all on my own time. I'm not being paid in any way, shape, or form yet. Hopefully, I'll eventually get there. But the truth of the matter is that I'm just an average guy who's calling bull on this because no evidence. Again, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and they have provided zero to us. The National Security Agency report is just not good enough, and neither is the mainstream media's say-so, which we found out over and over again has been completely compromised. Their way of reporting it through the Washington Post is absurd. Jeff Bezos, who owns both Amazon and now the Washington Post, just took a contract for $600 million, more than the Washington Post is even close to, and through Amazon as well, has taken contracts through both of these, through the FBI and CIA and the National Security Agencies. They've taken contracts from it, and they don't disclose it when they're reporting on all this Russia stuff that they want you to buy into. These people who make $3,000, or wear $3,000 suits and make $10,000 a day and report to you and try to manufacture consent to you, we've got to cut them loose. And that's why the online press corps Press Monkey Independent Media, and many of the other brave activists and truth bringers and have decided to pop up. So again, peace and bananas, and until next time.